A King's Ransom. Notoriety. Infamy. Titles. Lands. Women. This is what was promised to me. Listen, peasant, as I sing you the songs of High Grieflord Stephen, the menace of Blackrock Mountain, the two-army slayer. A king's bounty put me to the task of my prey. No small task to slay a god while his demigod army escorts him to battle against the Lord of Blackrock Spire. I knew I would need more information if there was ever a chance for this bounty to be claimed. 4 days I hid in that mud hut pig shit village they call a city. The smell of orc shit still lingers in my nostrils with every breath I take. Oh, how I enjoyed terrorizing those fitly frog-skin spear chuckers. During my reconnaissance I made note of those that bore the mark BDE, for there were truly too many to commit to memory. I made note of their mightiest warriors, talented marksmen, and most gifted sorcerers. It was to this end I noticed when the mud huts finally grew silent. Only the sound of the crying pigs weeping in relief of the constant ravaging of the frogskins carried through the air. Things were quiet, too quiet. My prey had escaped from under my nose. They were no longer within the confines of the city. But where could they flee? Too early to wage war at Blackrock Mountain. They surely would never make the journey in broad daylight. Then it struck me, either by stroke of luck or genius, they must have fled to their other wallow to prepare for war. To the plains of Malgar I rode, hoping the whole while I was not too late to catch them before they had prepared and my only opportunity was gone forever. I followed the smell of pig shit and blood all the way to the pinnacles of Thunder Bluff, and there it was. An army of those frog-skin spear-chucking heathens. This was going to be no easy feat, for a mere rogue impossible, but the menace of Blackrock is not easily intimidated. Sitting atop that pitch dripping of Wind Rider piss I saw it. A flash of turquoise I knew to be the robes worn by their soothsaying healers. It was him, the god I had come to kill, Totem X. From their Bazahir to the hole in the ground they banked their valuables he strolled, no idea of the certain death that was coming to meet him. Closer I snuck, sticking to the shadows and trying not to draw attention as I neared. Only a few steps more and the war would have ended before it began, but alas, I bumped into a walking corpse. The renowned warrior, Quarantine, locked eyes with me. In those eyes I saw no hate, no malice, no fear, nor dread. They were just the cold, indifferent eyes of a godless killing machine. With a piercing howl the alarm was given and I was known. I stood before the entire might of the God King's army, BDE, as an adolescent whose mother had entered without knocking to find his penis sticking up in the air like a flagpole and a Victoria's Secret's catalogue across his chest. I had no time to think, there was only panic. With inhuman speed I took a handful of blinding powder and threw it right into Quarantine's face, those cold eyes forced shut. Quickly reaching for a handful of flash powder to make an escape, my eyes were filled by light. My armor, swarming with fireflies, no. Violin's light, fairy fire. There would be no hiding, only fleeing. I sprinted to the Elder Rise. The frog skins were strong but all those muscles slowed them. I was much faster. I would just have to outrun them and hope to fight them one by one as they caught up to me. I had just cleared the bridge when I dared to take the first look behind me. Running with the aspects of a fucking cheetah, hot on my heels, was the one so named explicitly in the bounty as he who is beyond redemption, he who must pay for his sins, the great hunter Leon. I ducked into the first mud hut I could find to break his line of sight. Surely for a master hunter he would be able to track me as easily as an orc takes a piglet from behind. But this is what I was depending on. He entered the door to catch a cheap shot straight from my size 13 darkmantle boot right into his frog-skin testicles. I nearly broke my foot, like kicking a bag of apple-sized diamonds set in concrete, but worth the risk, for so easily was the great hunter Leon undone. It was at this moment I noticed the cacophony coming from all directions. The army of the damned surrounding me, making that noise they make when they are excited. It sounds like someone inhaling and coughing at the same time with sand in their mouth. Keck, sung from every height of Thunder Bluff. And then I felt it, a shot straight to my head, scattering all of my senses. The first thing I remember was feeling it beneath my foot. The trap I know I could defeat with a toothpick had already sprung on my foot. That deceitful demigod hunter had feigned me. He had not fallen so easily, and now I was stuck in his trap. With pleasure he strolled a few paces away. He strung his bow and knocked an arrow as casually as you would pour a glass of ale. The cacophony grew louder and the frogs' skins delighted in my seared execution. This has been a long time coming, friend. Truth be told, I have longed for this day for as long as I could remember. All of the grief and pain I have wrought to this world, it was all coming full circle, and part of me, no, all of me was glad. As I took one last breath and looked to the heavens, I accepted my fate. But this was not my day to die. A guard eager to the task of fulfilling years of patrols without any action struck me. The fool. He freed me from the trap, and my execution. With a flask of light and cloud of smoke I vanished, only to have a flare cut through the smoke and land only paces behind me, silhouetting me in full sprint flying to Leon. The sight of shadowy death that would be his last. Today his sins would be paid, today the balance of his debt was to be marked clear. With cold blood I struck that troll right in front of his subordinates. With my chromatically tempered blade and Hawkery warblade impaled deep into my would-be executioner, I remorselessly lifted him into the air, and my blades sang loud as I willed them apart with every fiber of my being. Eviscerated, his guts poured onto the ground. This is when a deafening silence blanketed Thunder Bluff. Here I stood and there they stood, the crowd of demigods I had been sent to kill, silent as a night in Tyrannies. Then it came, the sound of it. The fury of the horde filled the air as every warrior let out their battle shouts. I didn't know the language, didn't have to, it was clear, they were calling for my death. As they came to the bridge I met them, my bloodfang armor glistening with blood. Some went down easier than others, but none without a fight. It wasn't a fight, it wasn't a battle, this was war. Suddenly the crowd parted, and with a massive nova of ice I became trapped. Escaping the trap with the last of my flash powder, which I only had thanks to preparation, I charged blindly to the source. With dread I saw the Archmagi Epcotes, Mage Picker, and Decade summoning bolts of frost that would freeze oceans. Lightning scattered around them as their arcane power grew, truly some Goku shit. Lucky with some quick thinking and a frost reflector, I was able to take their great spells of frost and ice and turn them on their casters. The most gifted magi of the horde were no more. During the chaos I hadn't noticed him until I felt those thick orc hands around my throat. How could I have been so foolish? I had allowed the hands of death himself, Blade of Death Coneyhawk, to come upon me from behind, and he was punishing me for it. His garrote was already in place. I had just managed to catch it with my fingertips as he turned and lifted me onto his back, the way you would carry a sack of potatoes. Deep he leaned forward, my feet dangling in the air, my vision began to close. Beyond breath, beyond footing, beyond reach, beyond hope I struggled as I heard him make that fucking frog-skinned call. Kek. As the life left my body, so did the strength. No longer able to struggle, I accepted my faith. The Reaper himself had come to collect me this day. I should be flattered to die by the hands that had claimed so many heroes. Then I remembered, hidden just behind my bloodfang hood. He hadn't realized I had my gnomish mind control cap on. But how to activate it? My hands caught behind the garrote, trying to keep Coneyhawk from separating my head from my body, were no longer able to be freed. I took the last of my strength in an blind attempt to trip the activation button and brought my knee up to my forehead. The sound of gears turning and the gentle hum of electrical circuits were music to my ears. Dropping to the ground with great thirst, I inhaled, like a newborn's cry for the first time. As I turned, I saw my assassin charging the left flank in a blood fury that sent terrors through their ranks. The sound of those poor trolls and torrents as he ripped through his brethren. Like death itself, all he touched fell before him, never to rise again. No time to admire a master at work, I had to find my footing and face my next challenge. After all, I was here to slay a god, and he still yet took breath. With the chaos of Coney Hawk cutting through the city like a hurricane, I was free to slip away and move once again into the shadows. I know the God King would not be far from the entertainment and just needed to find him. And sure enough, I found him, but it was not the demigods of BDE that surrounded him, he was surrounded by another army. The conquerors of Murder Mountain the Unbent, the Giga-chads of the Horde. Wood Department had joined the fray and the odds were now hopelessly stacked against my favor. With frustration I yelled, "Is there none among you that would fight with honor in the King's tongue?" taking myself from the shadows and stepping into the scorching daylight of Malgar. The earth shook, the army parted and a fucking mountain walking on 3 legs came towards me. Surely this was some sort of illusion, surely this was some sort of trick. As it approached, it took its middle leg and slung it over its shoulder. The defier, the unbent, the unbroken, champion of the Horde Costanza himself had taken his massive 5-foot-long horse dong and shouldered it. Easily mistaken for a third leg at distance. And then before I knew my challenge had been accepted, he was on me. With the speed of an intern closing Pornhub as his boss walks into his cubicle to ask how his first day is going, he charged me. With the force of a typhoon he hit me. My armor sundered, my weapons flying, disarmed, and hopeless I fell to the blood-soaked dirt. Between his thumb and pinky he picked me up like you would a tissue after finishing a Mia Khalifa video. It was at this moment I used the only weapon available to me, the only one he'd given me. I took that gigantic uprooted tree of a penis with both hands and with my feet against his chest, deadlifted it above his head and dropped it. His massive horse cock knocked him out cold. It was this way the champion fell, it was this way I laid waste to a monster amongst monsters. By stroking his penis with all of my might and finishing in his face. Seeing their champion beaten, the lines broke. Fenrir, always with his trusty hip flask full, started to guzzle enough petrification mixture to turn the sea to desert. It was at this moment the God King knew he was soon to be bested. In his desperation he made a deal with the literal devil. In the back behind the lines of warriors and Sakharus I saw it. Yasumi had already prepared the altar of doom, the fool. The Shadow Caller had always played with magic beyond control, and this was something the likes of which I had never seen. The moons blocked the sun in the sky and I began to fight my way forward. The moons turned to blood and still I fought my way closer. The stars began to fall from the sky crashing around and yet I fought my way closer. The harder I fought to get closer, the harder the demigods of BDE and the Giga-chads of Wood Department fought me off. The screams of night creatures carried through the air as I had made no ground towards the altar. Yasumi, drunk with power, started to cackle. 4 virgin warriors, let's be real, they're all virgins, approached the altar and began to kneel. It was too late, I was not going to make it, but I knew I must. This was no longer a war for fame, glory, and riches, I was trying to save this very world from the insane games of a madman. Then with a crack like thunder a portal opened. Abandon all hope, what walked from that portal had the likeness of Doom Lord Kazakh himself, a full-fledged Doom Guard free in our realm. But in his insane gamble for power Yasumi fell to bad luck, for it was his life that was claimed as an equivalent exchange to free the demon. Without Yasumi to control it there was nothing to stop the beast from violence, of which it has a taste. Flying into the air and crashing down to earth it let loose a stomp that set buildings flying from the bluff, leveling both armies and myself. No longer was this a war between the mud huts and I. This was a fight for life against death. Without hesitation we joined forces as the demon crippled us with great shadow magic. Fire rained from the heavens and many were set ablaze. We fought the Guardian of Doom side by side for 4 days and 3 nights, from the plains of Malgar to the heights of Thunder Bluff again. We took no respite and gave none in return. It was the God King himself, Totem X, that delivered the final blow to the beast. Thunder fell from the heavens and smote that Doom Guard, leaving only a twitching corpse that quickly evaporated into shadows. Having spent a fair half of a week fighting the demon together, we had formed a bond, the mud huts and I. All was broken when that demented rogue Craxy and his partner in crime Mothugs detonated Arcanite bombs under our very feet, an act which the God King believed to be my own. I suppose some men just want to watch the world burn. Our brief moment of respect and peace shattered like the eardrums of everyone on Discord when Suze said hunters could see value out of a nature resistance ring in front of T Mugsy. The war continued, and believe me, adventure, I was not winning. Back once again onto the Elder Rise I was pushed. The countless demigods and giga-chads never ending. It was in my darkest moment I found myself, back on the ledge, and knew there was no more tactical retreating. This was it, my last stand. The God King Totem X himself walked forward, no one would deny him this glory. The taste of believed betrayal of his mercy still in his mouth. He began to summon not a bolt of lightning, but the whole storm. He was going to smite me so hard the city itself would fall. Deciding to make the only choice I had, I took my life into my own hand and threw myself from the heights of Thunder Bluff. I'd be damned if I'd give Totem X the satisfaction of vaporizing me. As I fell, I could hear the rage of the demigods and gigachads being denying this satisfaction. Like crazed animals they threw themselves from the cliff, following me to certain doom. As our bodies broke upon the rocks I rolled, allowing my armor to take most of the abrasion. I had always been light-footed and rolled to my feet like a cat. Had I done it? Had I escaped? Had the God King met his fate at the ends of the rocks? As I walked towards the still twitching bodies, I was knocked off my feet as an ankh exploded from the God King's chest and he jumped to his feet, back from death itself. In my last act of desperation I lifted my armor and showed the God King I was strapped with enough goblin sapper chargers to turn 1,000 needles into shimmering flats. Ilun Akbar, I shouted as I detonated my sappers. When I awoke I was laying in the grass, some distance from Thunder Bluff. I guess my armor had caught most of the damage. God damn, I love Bloodfang. Walking back I found their pile of corpses. My mission is complete, the bounty I claim. Behold peasants, stand in awe. Tremble in terror, fall in fear, kneel before your God, the two-army slayer, the menace of Blackrock Mountain, High Grieflord Stephen.